Hello and welcome to some Monsters on the Edge, or Monsters in the Sea, anyway. So, what we have here is the Spyderco Ikuchi. Ikuchi, named after a Japanese sea monster, a mythical Japanese sea monster, or we hope it's mythical anyway, but a serpent-like sea monster. So, this knife, designed by Paul Alexander, a little bit about him, PhD in mechanical engineering, and a self-proclaimed lifelong knife enthusiast, or knife nut, as we like to call it, and lifelong knife collector. Apparently, Paul had this design in the works for about 4 or 5 years before submitting it to Spyderco, and obviously was accepted, and that's why we have this very good-looking knife in front of us here. So, guys, I'm going to be doing the usual materials, dimensions, and weight, and then dive into designs and attributes of this knife. Right, we have a blade steel of CPM S35V, not uncommon with Spyderco knives. Handle is carbon fiber and G10 laminate. We have stainless steel liners. The screws are stainless steel, and then we've got the stainless steel wire pocket clip. Dimensions and weight. Right, dimensions of the knife. We've got a blade length of 83 millimeters or 3.26 inches. Blade thickness of 2.4 millimeters or 0.09 inches. Handle thickness of 11 millimeters or 0.43 inches. Close length of the knife is 110 millimeters, 4.35 inches. And then overall length is 193 millimeters, and that's 7.61 inches. Right, let's check out the weight of this, and I don't have any stated weights for the knife. Feels light, and one expects it to be light. This size of knife kind of, I suppose, falls into that category of gentleman's folder. Right, let's get the scale on here, nicely centered and cranked up. Let's see what we're on. We're on grams. Right, let's have a look at that. So grams, 67 grams. Yeah, so very light knife. Let's check that out in ounces. 2.4 ounces. Yeah, so as expected, it is a nice light knife, and I suppose, as I said, a typical gentleman's folder. Right, let's speak a little bit about the design and attributes of the knife. So we've got blade shape is that sort of Persian upswept blade, full flat grind, and the grind very, very nicely done. We've got a satin finish to that, and let's turn that to see if we can get a little bit of light. Incredibly neatly done. Nicely sort of angled grind lines on the knife that really look good as well. And speaking about angles, we've got an angled ricasso that sort of sweeps up a little bit behind the handle, and then that angled plunge line that runs from the spine of the blade into a very, very neat sharpening choil. The edge on the knife, while we're speaking about that, really neat and sharp out of the box. The rest of the blade, squared off back, that is not atypical of a Spyderco blade, and then this little curve that looks quite good sort of curves down into the handle on the spine of the blade. Another thing on the blade that's worth looking at is on the tang of the blade. We've got this little jimped area, this round jimped area, and that's how you deploy the knife. And that I've seen it described as a few things, as a wheel flipper, but Paul himself I've seen describes that as a roller flipper, and really interesting how that works. Reminds me a lot of the little scrolly wheel on a lighter. You know, that wheel that when you turn it, it turns up against the flint and creates the spark. You know, if you know a big lighter, you'll know what I'm talking about. But really works pretty much the same way, that you get your finger on there and flip that, and instead of a flame coming out, you've got a beautiful blade that comes out and actually works. You can, if you get it in the right sort of angle in your hand, works the same as a lighter as well. So get that, imagine that as a lighter in your hand, get your thumb onto that, and it flicks out beautifully like that as well. Also see we've got a really small spidey hole, the smallest spidey hole that I've seen, certainly in a knife that I've had in my hand. There might be smaller in existence, but not that I know of. But dare I say it, quite cute actually, and serves no practical function, obviously, because you've seen how you flick the knife or deploy the knife using that, what did I call it, roller flipper at the back. When the knife is closed, you can see that that blade is completely embedded inside, enclosed, I suppose, better word, inside the handle. So you don't see from either side, you don't see the blade at all. Incredibly neat, well integrated design, this. Right, let's get that back open and then look at the general shape of the knife. So I spoke about that upswept or Persian type blade, but you can see how the general shape flows that way and then curves down there. So as I said, very nicely integrated in this sort of flowing line to the blade and handle of the knife. The handle itself, very slab-sided again, not atypical of a Spyderco design. You know, if you look at it from the top view, looking down on the knife, you can see no profiling or shaping at all on that handle. The detail really comes in the material. So in this case, it is the carbon fiber on that. But a very fuss-free, elegant design to this knife. Really is very, very, very beautiful. Flick that out again. This knife then, one of those compression lock Spyderco knives, and really what that means for those that don't know about it is instead of your liner lock sitting on that side of the blade where your fingers normally go, it flips it around and you've got basically the same type of liner lock but sitting on the spine of the blade, and then that's just called a compression lock, and it releases the same way as any other liner lock. You push that across and it then releases the blade, and you can see a little bit of a cutback, discreet little cutback on the handle. See if I can get a nice angle on that, to give your finger or thumb access to that compression lock. So basically you push that out the way, and what's nice about these compression locks, they all seem to be the same, is once you release that, the blade pretty much drops free. So a drop shutty blade on the knife, and that, as I say, is typical of a compression lock knife, Spyderco knife. So release it and it just, oh, there you go, and it falls shut. You can deploy the knife the same way. This one a little bit thin to do it comfortably, and again, I'm in a battle under the camera, but you release that and you can kind of, there we go, sort of that you can flick the knife open like that as well. But there you go, drops nicely shut. But all in all, very, very interesting and clean design knife. I really do like it. It's one of those knives that I got in my hand and it was like, you know, when I first saw it and got it in my hand, that was the general attitude. But the more I've been playing around with it and the more I've looked at the shape of the knife and the finish of the knife, it really is very, very appealing. And let me just stop right there before I forget. So this knife, the second Spyderco that's now on the channel, and another Spyderco that's been supplied by my good friend Bowen. So this one of his knives in his personal collection. So I really do appreciate him allowing me to take it from him and look over for, well, I've had the knife for a little over a week. I've really been able to look it over thoroughly. So Bowen, really do appreciate you allowing me to walk away with one of your private collection knives. Do appreciate it. So yeah, getting back to the knife, you know, typical Spyderco fashion, nice, solidly made, feels good in hand, nicely finished off. Let's just have a look at those scales. So a little bit of a light knife. I would have imagined it to be light anyway, but further weight saving done. If we look inside there, and I'm going to get the torch on here and hopefully we can see inside there. There you can see that a little bit of that liner mulled away in those round holes to further lighten what, as I say, probably would have been a light knife anyway. Right, what else is there to cover off on the knife? I think I've pretty much covered off everything. Well, I need to speak about the pocket clip, obviously. So we've got tip up carry, and it's one of those wire pocket clips. And I've mentioned before in some of my other reviews that I really do like wire pocket clips. I think they look good and they work very well. You can see it's not particularly deep carry, so where this is mounted, mount a little bit below the top of the knife. That's if I've got it in this angle. You can see a little bit of the knife will be sticking out. You're obviously going to be seeing the pocket clip as well, but reversible too. So if you look at the scale on that side, you can see the two cutouts in the scale that make allowance for that pocket clip to be mounted on that side as well. Also, just want to mention, I almost forgot that neat little, quite playful hole in the handle. I thought that was, again, can I say it, quite cute. A really, really nice, playful design element. So when you close the knife, there we go. That lines up with the blade. So you've got this hole running right through the knife. And I think that is just such a nice, elegant, little, fun design touch to the knife. But yeah, very, very, I mean, beautiful. I think I've pretty much spoken through most of the things on the knife. Maybe just speak about the blade, the markings on the blade there. You can see if I get the right angle. How about that? You can see the designer's mark. So that's Paul Alexander's mark on the blade on that side. And then if we flip it to the other side, obviously we've got the Spyderco logo. And this, there we have Spyderco and the blade steel. Beautifully done. This is one of the Spydercos made in Taiwan, by the way, and that's the markings on the ricasso. Right, what's left to do, I suppose, is just size comparisons on the knife. And because I've got the other Spyderco, the PM3 in my collection, now I'm going to be starting with that as a comparison. So let's flick that out. Another compression lock knife, by the way, so the same sort of thing. You've got the not deploy, you lock the knife. The liner lock, I suppose, for lack of a better word, sits on the spine instead of the front, same as that knife. But there, that gives you an idea of that. The ubiquitous Spyderco PM3 in this case. I think everybody knows that knife well enough. I will be doing a review on this, by the way. It's a recent acquisition, and I've used it now. This is the second time I'm using it for size comparisons, but I'm going to be doing a review of that knife as well. Right, let's get that out of the way. The other knife I've got here to do a size comparison, because I think it's also one of those gentleman folders. And yeah, let's try that again. There we go. And this a front flipper. You can see similar-ish size knives, and you can see this has also got that flow to the handle, a little bit more exaggerated on that, but also sort of gives that slight sort of flowy lines that that this knife has as well. And also worth looking at. So that's your traditional front flipper, although that one sticks out maybe more than most, but just having a look at the difference between the two. So there's your front flipper, and then traditionally if you had a back flipper, it would be sticking out over there, and then this, the different way of doing it, that roller flipper. I really do like that. It's something a little bit different. Right, let's get that down. What next is, I brought this on, and I always do bring this knife out when I do a slender knife, and that's the Wee Array, just to give you a little bit of a comparison of that as well, simply because it's also one of those long, slender type knives. The Array, quite a bit, if I line up the backs of them, you can see quite a bit longer, but anyway, another long, slender type knife. Right, get that out the way. And then the ones that I usually use, let's get those out. So there is the Spyderco Manix 2, an altogether bigger knife in all dimensions, slightly longer, but you know, the rest of it, it's a bulkier knife. Right, get that out the way. And what else have I been using? There's a bashed the light there a little bit. I thought it had disappeared for a second. The Medford Slim Midi still has dust flying out of it from its regular carry rotation. There we go, give you a sense of those two. And then the last one that I always do use, and as I always do say, because it has been out for so long, I think everybody that likes knives knows this knife, and that is the Benchmade Mini Barrage. Give you a sense of that. Right, let's get that out the way. So guys, yeah, all in all, a really beautifully designed knife. I really do like it. These little design touches, that hole, you know, the very small hole on the blade, and then this roller flipper, really very, 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 very nice and compelling knife. In fact, might be one of those knives that gets lost somewhere between here and me returning it to Bowen. And that is it. I think I've covered off everything on it. Oh, maybe just the standoffs at the back there that are those sort of pulley-shaped standoffs, also really neatly done. But altogether, a beautiful design, well-integrated design, nicely finished off, and maybe something a little unusual, and certainly a knife that can be used, I think, in all occasions, or for all occasions, when you consider the size of the knife and the weight of the knife. Really, really do like this. Guys, and I think that's it. I think I've covered everything off that there is, for me anyway, to cover off on the knife. All that's left to say is show my appreciation, or say my appreciation, give my appreciation for you joining me. Really do appreciate it. And as always, do say, I would equally appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so that you can be notified every time I release a new video, because I would love you to join me more often. And other than that, you go well and God bless.